Welcome to Awakening, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christian Strang, and we're bringing you another special interview in our interview series. And I am so delighted to bring to you today Jordan Summers. Jordan is an incredible light here on earth. She is joyously committed to co-creating heaven on earth. As an energetic healing facilitator, she guides individuals and groups through somatic and imaginal practices that help you connect with your own divinity. Jordan is also partnered with an organic, regeneratively grown superfoods company, and her favorite protocols remove glyphosate and supply the body with nutrient-dense, light-filled whole foods. Jordan offers energy healing sessions, meditation classes, group meditations, and home blessings. Jordan, I am so happy we get to do this. Welcome to the Awakening podcast.
Thanks, Christian. It's so wonderful to be here.
So good. I know this has been a long time coming for us. And I love doing this interview series because we get to introduce our listeners to folks who are really walking the talk, who are living a spirit-led path. They're living a life in integrity. And in today's world, that's a really big deal. And it can be sort of overwhelming and difficult to find those souls in the just mass of fraudulent hacks, all the different things that are out on earth. So it's really so fun for me to do this interview series and be able to introduce our listeners to legit healers of the light. And I'm so again, delighted to have you with us. So the reason we do this series is because we really want to give folks a variety of different insights and inspiration around what awakening means when you're on earth. So typically, you've heard me, listeners, you've heard me tell this story before, but so often we have this concept, I know I did early on in my spiritual journey, of it's a one-time awakening and then you're good. And then you're like on the spiritual path and that's it. And really, because we are living in such an accelerated time and consciousness, because we have the capacity to live multiple lifetimes worth of content in one lifetime, we are having many awakenings throughout our lifetime if we are staying consistent and congruent and in alignment with our higher self. So I love sharing these awakening stories so that we can dispel the myth that a spiritual awakening is only this one huge thing that happens, but rather that there are those subtle awakenings that happen. There are those awakenings that happen at times and in ways that you never could have imagined that are actually occurring for your ascension. So, Jordan, I want to turn it over to you and hear the awakening story you've been inspired to share with us today. And really, again, excited for listeners to be able to experience you. So tell us about one aspect or more of your awakenings that you would like to share today.
Thanks for teeing that up. I love your reminder that it's an ongoing process. And I feel like every single day, really every single moment, we have a choice whether to lean more into our awakening or the opposite. Um, it feels like there's not really any staying static. There's really no staying in one spot when it comes to awakening. And it's this emergent process that happens through us. When I was thinking about which story I wanted to talk about today, the one that immediately popped up was last summer. Overall, my awakening journey has not been a super cataclysmic one. It felt very gradual throughout my life. And when I reflect back at the time, I didn't always know what was happening, but there's always been this unfolding naturally occurring. But last summer, I had an opportunity to really revisit everything from scratch again. I was in a car accident with my family, and we were coming back home from a town that was about 4 hours away. And my dad was driving, my mom was in the back seat. We weren't often all together at this period in time. It's been a few years since I really, lived with my parents. As an adult, we weren't spending as much time together. So it was really interesting that all of us went through this experience together. But anyway, our car was hit on the highway uh, about 3 times. The car spun around a ton. We wound up hitting a median and sliding. It was a very dramatic event and really turned into what I later understood to be my own near-death experience. During the event, I was not in pain. I didn't experience anything in that way. Like my body really took care of me, and I just heard really in my own voice a recurring phrase of everything's okay. Human me, my mind, my monkey mind started to think and about all the logistics, about all the stuff in the car. How are we going to get home? All these things. And very quickly, just this voice kept playing over and over and over. It's really following that accident that I feel like my reawakening or this awakening experience really unfolded. During the accident, I had no context. I candidly lost a lot of IQ points and discernment and really didn't intellectually know what was going on. And a lot of my cognitive functioning went completely offline for about a month. But it was following this accident that I was given an opportunity to remake every choice all over again. So the awakening process that had unfolded throughout my life and probably throughout lifetimes, I got to replay it all over again. Every single day, every choice was brand new. What kind of person was I? Who did I want to play in this game? Um, for example, my personality just completely dissipated. I'm typically really bubbly and often, positively give people feedback through my body language and my voice and my eyes. And all of that kind of went offline. I no longer was performing to make other people feel comfortable emotionally. I think when I also other choices, other choices emerged too. Like suddenly I was watching TV again. Um, I relapsed into cannabis. Um, the people I was spending time around, the relationships I was in. This accident happened only 4 weeks, maybe less, after I had internally and with even told friends that I had decided to leave my husband. And so it was very interesting timing. It really created a blank slate that I had to rebuild myself kind of from scratch and really had this beautiful opportunity to choose in every moment without as much baggage as I had been carrying before, almost like it was new. Um, yeah, I'll pause there, Christian. There's like a lot baked into that experience. I mean, there's the relationships with my parents and how those unfolded from that.
Yeah.
There's how it led into my divorce process. But I think overall, like the message I really got from it was we always have the opportunity to start over or to make a new choice.
I love that so much. And I was writing as you were speaking, and when you began talking about awakenings as an emergent process, and that sometimes you don't even realize you're in the midst of a spiritual awakening until you're deeper in it, or you're looking back and reflecting on what has shifted. And this is something I actually share with people a lot as well, that when you're in the center of the crisis, the blah, 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 the whatever it is that's happening, it's almost impossible to see like, okay, this is why it's happening. This is what it's going to yield to me. And this is how everything's going to go. You just don't have that clear sight at that time. Even in my awakening story, I was just trying to get healthy, right? I was just trying to heal my body. I had no idea what was actually happening. And so I love that reminder that in the midst of a seeming crisis, or in the midst of something happening that you're like, whoa, like what is going on? Don't waste or expend energy trying to figure out, what does this mean? How is this going to ripple into my life? Just trust that it will be revealed. And all that's needed is your full presence, in each moment that you're in your life, because it will be revealed to you. So I love this, what you brought in here about this emergent process, and that these awakenings are really a gradual unfolding. And so it's just our willingness, our ability to be fully present and engage what's occurring in our life. At what point would you say, did you sort of look back and realize, OMG, this quote unquote accident was really like this huge opportunity for me to choose again and really rebuild who I am?
That too is a gradual understanding. Pretty much every day, I was like, wow, I was really stupid yesterday. I can't believe I spent the day like that, or I can't believe how dumb I was. I kind of had the benefit of really not having my personality functioning, really not having my cognitive capabilities functioning as they normally do. I'm a pretty, I like intellectual stuff, and that's a strength, but it also can really get in our way where you, as you kind of said, start to try to overanalyze the
Yes,
situation, try to make sense of it in the midst of it when really like you're not stable enough to really do so.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
that too is gradual. I would say probably after about a month, it
Mhm.
became pretty aware to me what a big deal it was. Initially, just the amount of adrenaline and shock my body went through was
Yeah.
really not allowing me to access it at all. So it wasn't even a choice. And that's why I think this experience was such a powerful moment for me, because a lot of the ways that I got really good at navigating the world through, the intellect, communication skills, even emotional intelligence, it all went away. And I really had no choice but to be super present with myself. So I
Mm.
wish I could say like it was some kind of like, I'm so advanced, but the truth is, it's just every other option was taken off the table. But as time went on, um, I also recognized that I didn't always make the right choice. It was very interesting. I think marijuana is probably the best example to speak to because I think it's the most damaging out of
Mhm.
everything I experienced. But um, because I recognized slowly how out of it I was, it was much easier for me to forgive myself. Whereas when I made those same choices in the past, and as I came to realize that they were not positive choices, there was a lot of self judgment and guilt and shame that really extends really the process of letting go of those things as well.
Mm.
It's they're not helpful, but in this context, it was such a beautiful gift because it was easier for me to have compassion for myself because I knew I wasn't capable. And then over time, I was able to extend that and really accept, okay, I did the best I could at different points in time. And I'm not going to make those choices again. But understanding that that's where I was in my state of consciousness, that's where I was in terms of the toxicity, even of my body temple and my ability to navigate the world as effectively as I can now. And really provide forgiveness to myself, my past selves. I think that was a huge, huge lesson I got out of this experience.
Oh, I love that. And really, as you're describing this, Jordan, I'm seeing a lot of, higher self on earth. This is most likely what we go through when we do our life review, right? That we can look back and have compassion for ourselves and see where we made choices that were not in our highest alignment. But like you said, you're doing the best you can, working with what you've got, given all the circumstances, this was the choice. And to be able to extend that love and compassion and forgiveness to the self. And then from that place, go, okay, and what choice am I making now? I was getting, very higher self vibes there as you were sharing that story of being able to have that reflection over time. I also want to speak to, this is very common when these big sort of awakening events happen that we don't like have a choice. It wasn't like I had the choice to like, okay, now I'm going to connect to the divine. You're not given any other choice. Everything else sort of gets taken offline so that you are in a whole new place to be remade, reformed, reborn. And so having that compassion and forgiveness for the choices we make that may not be in our highest good or serving us in the highest possible way is so important, because you talked about this voice that was saying, and again, I would say higher self vibes there, saying, everything's going to be okay. You are being held in the context of an experience that really can wig a lot of people out and cause them to go into all sorts of distortions. You were being held and then guided even when you didn't know the full extent of what was occurring. And that's a beautiful point that I want to highlight there.
Totally. Yeah, I like that you point out this concept of the higher self really being present throughout it, because that's exactly how I experienced it. And oh, there's so many levels to this. I mean, as you were talking about, you know, kind of being pushed into this game and not really having a choice, I'm curious. I mean, this is taking it a little bit in a metaphysical direction, Christian, but I wonder, is that a reason why the higher self would incarnate at all, so that we have this opportunity to come at things fresh again, um, and make new choices? But that's definitely how I experienced it. And in addition to that, over time, this phrase of everything's okay meant different things to me. In the
Yeah,
moment, it felt like, okay, I'm gonna be okay, as in Jordan, human avatar Jordan is okay. Like, we're gonna live. Later, it meant a very different thing to me. Later, I understood, oh, this is a little bit bigger. Actually, I'm always okay. There's never a moment that I'm not okay.
that's right.
And even going through a death portal, even going through something that may seem very traumatic, in every single moment, I'm actually always okay.
Mm.
But in the thick of it, I did not have the capacity to really grasp it at that level. But that was another takeaway I had from that experience.
Oh, I love that. And that is such a powerful spiritual teaching in and of itself. Because we do incarnate, to your question, we do incarnate to have the full range of experiences that one can have on earth. And the specific exact scenarios that we experience are going to give us exactly what we need to become who we really are. So this notion of like, I'm always okay, which is, by the way, the total opposite program, right? That we're given from the medical industrial complex. That's a totally different program we're given from the educational system. There's so much programming around, I'm not okay, and I better fix that ASAP, that I just love that really profound spiritual message served you at multiple dimensions of your experience, right? At the third and fourth dimensional, just like, okay, I'm in this situation. And then at the higher levels of recognizing, oh, thanks, higher self. It's actually true. I'm never not okay. There's so many places we can go with this conversation, but one place that just keeps like getting my attention, in fact, I've circled it in my notes, is Jordan, we have to talk about no longer performing for others. We got to go there because that is such a huge program, especially for the feminine, of this being performative, making sure everyone else is okay, doing their emotionally enabling the people in our lives. So I want to talk more about this. What is it like to live in your experience free of this? I'm no longer performing to make the other, to enable or make the other people around me okay. Tell us more about that. I feel it's so juicy.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big topic. It I kind of want to take a step back and just kind of give context. Really, I developed a huge hypervigilance as a child, just to really eliminate what was perceived as dangerous emotional responses in my environments that were highly unpredictable. So
Mm.
over time, I really developed pretty strong emotional intelligence. I developed pretty incredible skills, truly, at uh, connecting with other humans, because that was just how I navigated and tried to keep myself safe when I didn't feel safe. And over time, this has actually been kind of a huge quote asset for me. A lot of my success in my career and different things I've done have been built on this ability to connect with other people, make other people feel comfortable, and really create environments where they feel safe. But sometimes this comes at the cost of our own well-being, and
Yes.
it comes at the cost of our authenticity. And the truth is, we're going to be of the most value here when we're in our authentic frequency and not wearing masks. But I think most people who have been through an awakening journey know at first that could be a little bumpy when people are not used to your
Yes.
authentic self. um, yeah, I mean, in this instance, it really was not a choice. My ex husband told me that he thought that my heart had become cold, um, which was very interesting because I think that reflected back to me, wow, how much I was self filtering
Mm,
even my smallest, physical, what seemed like unconscious physiological responses, right? Just your body language and how you respond to people. I had been so on guard and had learned how to manipulate and control the expression of myself through my body on so many levels to such a high degree that I had even forgotten how
mm,
much I was performing for other people. And
mm,
I'm very grateful to be able to drop that. And over time too, I kind of had to learn, okay, do I giggle at people or not? Now I'm a lot more back into even what my personality was before the accident. But I think I have a little bit more awareness now around when I'm truly expressing myself versus when I'm starting to slip into something based really on a sympathetic nervous system response.
yes.
Um,
Yes.
because it's okay to connect with people. It's okay. We have
Mhm.
mirror neurons. Like a lot of those aspects of being a human are really beautiful. But when we're really wearing masks instead of using the body temple and using the personality as a way to express our soul and our essence, uh, then we're really just attracting experiences that we don't want. We wind up continuously putting ourselves in situations that make us feel not great,
Mm,
um, because we're afraid of backlash. And sometimes people are not going to positively respond. But over time, it becomes easier because the people who are attracted to you, the people who are around you, the people you work with, they're there because they like the authentic frequency that you have. So, you know, it it really is up to us to shine our light so that we can be aligned with the environments and the opportunities and the places that really are our own little personal golden age rather
mm.
than a fabrication of to be extreme like a little prison that we created because we're acting out of fear and we're just attracting other things that want to feed off of that fear.
Well said. Well said. So I want us all to take a moment to just reflect on that because what you just shared, Jordan, is so profound. When we talk about letting go of having to perform for others, this doesn't mean, we're not kind, just as Jordan was saying, it's noticing what's happening in your nervous system. And so one of the things I always look for is who do I feel the most peaceful around? Where are the places I feel most peaceful in? That's letting you know you're in your parasympathetic nervous system, which allows your authentic self to shine through. And there are most definitely individuals having whole marriages for 20, 30 years, and they are in a sympathetic nervous system response. They are performing, they are not being their authentic self. Same with careers for, decades, and they're not being their authentic self. So let's all take a moment and just reflect on that. Who are the people, places, and things that we feel most at peace with, most at ease with? If we grew up in a home environment where we were in a sympathetic nervous system response, meaning our caregivers were not exactly the safest, most caring people for us to be with, we are going to find ourselves in situations and relationships with more people like that. But that doesn't mean our nervous system is at peace. It means it's just a familiar pattern. So we're not even talking about familiarity here. We're talking about feeling genuine peace in your body mind.
Yeah, that's a great exercise. And I love returning to kind of the process that we both have used for spiritual discernment. And that's checking in with the heart and the gut and then the
Yes.
head. and seeing if they're all aligned, because there's many situations where my heart was like, heck yes. But it was really a manic, ungrounded,
Yeah.
still a sympathetic nervous system response, but it seemed exciting. And that's okay. That's how
Yeah.
we learn and
Yes.
recalibrate and develop deeper discernment. So, there's no mistakes. But I love that practice and really being honest with ourselves. Am I here because it's, activating a pattern that feels energizing, but ultimately is draining me and
Yeah.
keeping me stuck in negative loops? Or is this truly something that's aligned?
Mm. So well said. And our gut brain, as you brought in so brilliantly there, Jordan, is like that can be your backup check on your heart. So you can really check in to see, like, is it just this giddy, I think you said manic kind of, yeah, 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 like that energy is a wound. So your gut's going to let you know that. If your gut feels grounded and calm and at peace, that's a true, genuine, authentic you. Yes. If it feels uneasy, hyped up, anxious, that's letting you know there are wounds at play that just want love and healing. To Jordan's point, like that's okay. This is how we learn. We all do this, and it's an invitation to go deeper in our own inner healing and often really integrate those unhealed aspects of ourself, whether they're younger versions of ourself from this lifetime or from other lifetimes. So I love how you brought that in. Can we also talk about the cannabis piece?
Totally. I want
Yeah.
to add one more thing to the
Yes,
discernment piece, though.
please.
Something that's been super helpful for me to have awareness around is, do I feel urgent? Do I feel like I have to act on something right now?
Yes.
Because if that's how I feel, I am not in my grounded, connected to my divinity state.
Yep.
And that has never failed me, actually, that simple tool. Do I
Mm,
feel like I have to do something right now, or the world's going to end, or this person's going to hate me, or whatever? Or, am I calm? Do I feel like I have all the time in the world to get in the clarity, to ask God to show me the next piece so that I can move through peacefully?
mm. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yes, yes, yes.
But yeah, we can totally talk about cannabis, weed, whatever. I'm very open about my usage in the past because I think it's really important. And I saw myself get trapped in this,
Mhm,
and I see many other people, and it's something that within spiritual communities, especially, I think has been viewed as a better alternative to
mhm,
other things like alcohol. But I
mhm,
think in some ways it's more insidious. And I hear it often spoken about as a spiritual tool. I'm not here to say what is right for other humans, but it is very clear in my own experience that it is very damaging to the spirit and really gets in the way of us connecting with our divinity and progressing forward. So, this is something that I struggled with for several years. Um, Other people in my family started at a much younger age than I. I didn't actually get into it until I was older and really towards the end of college, um, as the people in my life and around me were doing it. And at some point, it became a daily crutch. I used to deal with a lot of chronic headaches. I was in pain a lot of the time. I have a history of depression and was diagnosed with PTSD. And I mean, I have so many opinions now about
yeah,
the DSM
yeah,
and all of that. Diagnoses are kind of spells, but
yes.
just to give some context, I was not mentally well, I was not physically well. And I really leaned on cannabis as a tool to get through my life and to
Mhm.
make it more manageable and to make things easier. And at different points in time, I felt more creative. Eventually, though, I really recognized these are all illusions. I wasn't really getting better. I wasn't really being a better person. I wasn't really experiencing more of life. It becomes kind of this trap.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I, you know, I don't know the path for everyone. For me, I got very serious about cutting all sorts of things out of my life because I recognized that I really crave in this lifetime to experience unification with God in my body. And pretty much anything that gets in the way of that at this point, especially, it's just very clear to me I don't do that.
Mm, love it.
And even though I had that level of clarity, it took probably a year for me to really step through that. And there's several reasons for that. But a big one was being married to someone who was doing it all the time too.
Hmm.
And our frequencies, I was really on a very specific path and he was not coming with me. And to cope with that, I would do drugs because it kept our frequencies within a similar band.
Yes.
And what I have found, and other people have said this too, is that as your frequency shifts and raises, you really can only spend so much time around other people who aren't within kind of a radius of your frequency. Of course, you can talk to people at the grocery store who are living in a totally different dimension than you, but it's very challenging to maintain close relationships with people who are just not on a similar wavelength.
Mm.
And so I was really using it to keep that situation manageable because when I wasn't doing it, the tension was very high. And the truth is, I think my marriage started to dissolve when I decided to become sober because that really took off the veil. I mean, I can't think of a better word than veil that I had placed over my own eyes to prevent me from really seeing like how discongruent we were. And that's not to say that it was never an aligned thing or, I'm not here to make any judgments on anyone else, but I really learned that I was avoiding truths about what was in front of me by doing drugs. I don't know what other questions you want to get into around this, Christian. I think this is a really important topic in general. It
Yes.
did become much easier to make these changes when I became committed to daily meditation and detoxifying my body in other ways on a nutritional level. I think it would have been much harder to do also without mentorship from you. Um, but in hindsight, it was my relationship that kept it going as long as it did.
Yeah, thank you so much for your vulnerable share here, Jordan, because this is such an important conversation to have because cannabis kind of gets, especially in spiritual communities, sort of the green light. Like, yes, it's clear alcohol is a poison, it's a toxin. Okay, we get it. People do terrible things when they drink alcohol, but cannabis, that you can do this instead. And that is really how it's sort of positioned. And I really loved your authentic sharing about what you notice, the dynamics in your relationship. Of course, this is happening with any drug, whether it's mushrooms and microdosing, or alcohol, or cannabis, or cigarettes, or junk food, or processed food, or sugar, like these things. And I've watched this over the years that people get into relationships where they're just holding each other back. And there's usually a shared addiction, whether it's food, cannabis, or any of the things we named. So I really appreciate all that you brought in here because it provides so much value and clarity. Cannabis is from the earth, and that's often why it is, revered as like, well, then it's fine for us to misuse it. It's actually not fine to misuse it, but it is here to support healing and is certainly a better modality to use than chemical medications from the Western world. However, humans, we have a tendency to go overboard with these things, right? And then when we're using it to get high, we're not using it to support the body's natural healing process. Now we're out of integrity and out of alignment. And now we're utilizing a tool from the earth, the healing modality that's been given to us from the earth in a way that is distorted, which then creates distorted creations. We see the same thing with microdosing and ayahuasca and all the other quote unquote plant medicines. Those medicines have very specific uses, cannabis included. And when it's misused, now we've got problems. Now we have humans that are dysregulated and are utilizing this dysregulation to create more misaligned creations. And that's not serving the human, it's not serving the collective, it's not serving the relationships. But the way that you shared your experience, Jordan, is so relatable and so valuable because so many of us find ourselves in those kinds of situations. And then what do you do? And you mentioned here a few pieces I really want to highlight: daily meditation practice, nutritional detox, mentorship. Having this kind of support is what can help break the addiction at the physical level, the brain chemistry level, and at the soul level. And then you let go of the relationship when it was clear that that relationship was not going to be able to go to a sober place and go to a new level or a new dimension of love and union. So those are some very manageable, practical steps that you took to break free of a trap like cannabis addiction. And again, whoever's listening, you can apply this to sugar addiction, any addiction. You can take that and utilize these tools that Jordan's talking about to support you in your own liberation. And you also mentioned, Jordan, I love this unification with God through your body. Those of us called to, this Awakening the podcast, those of us called to anything that me and my spiritual team are creating, that's what we're going for in this lifetime. That is part of our mission here, to experience unification with God, or you can say the higher self or source, use whatever terminology resonates for you, through the body. The body is an important part of this experience. And in order to do that, we have to be free of dependencies, chemical, natural, and otherwise, meaning something like cannabis or microdosing with mushrooms or anything like that that is natural from the earth, but can be misused and doesn't allow us to experience that true unification. One of my mentors said many years ago, and I, agree with this wholeheartedly: radical sobriety is the trippiest trip you will ever go on. People are misusing drugs and alcohol because they don't want to experience the real trip, which is sobriety. So if you really want to go on a trip, be fully sober, be fully present with what is happening in your day-to-day experience and all of the miracles and magic that's here for you. So I just love that you brought in these pieces, Jordan, and I love the very actionable items you gave us today to really, for anyone who's listening, who's like, okay, I want to try to break free of a current addiction. Well, here's 4 steps: daily meditation practice, nutritional detox, and Jordan can hook you up with both of those, mentorship, and then letting go of any relationships that are not interested in going to those higher levels of unification. Now, Jordan, I want to shift it a little bit now and get into our second question. And I think we've kind of even gotten there with these amazing next steps you've given us. But what is the way that you're really loving right now that you are co-creating the next golden age? What's something that you recommend listeners try out, or something that's just really lighting you up these days in terms of creating your own personal golden age?
Yeah, I love this question. My answer, I think, is actually really simple, but could take us to a lot of places. I think the theme throughout my awakening journey has been showing up 111% to everything that is right in front of me, showing up fully, all in to the reality that I have rendered right now. There have been different points in my journey where I've had realizations of, oh, wow, my job isn't the most spiritual thing I'm doing, or, I don't love having to go work a 9 to 5, or I'm not really having a great time at this party with these people who, I used to resonate with, but don't anymore. The truth is, wherever you are right now has all of the codes you need to get to your next level. And so often, I think we avoid the gifts and the keys in front of us because we're chasing something that isn't actually aligned for us yet. So that's a little mushy, but
Oh,
I
I
would
love it.
say being all in, whatever you're doing, if you have a meeting today, or um, maybe you even just need to clean your house, like whatever it is, really push yourself. Push is maybe not the best way to say it, but invite yourself and ask yourself, how can I be most present in this activity? How can I be most embodied doing this thing? And I love with whatever I'm doing to say a prayer or an invocation as I step into a new part of my day or a new task, and really ask to be supported so that I may show up fully in all of my lights, and so that I may be a vessel to emanate immense love for all those who are around me, all those I will interact with, or even just, the space that's around me. Maybe no one's there and it's just something I'm doing at home. But you can add this intentionality to literally anything. And I think that is the biggest level up. We don't have to go find something else to do. We don't need to quit our jobs. Um, sometimes there are big action steps that are in front of us to do, and we have the clarity to do them, and source has provided the resources to make it happen. So it's not that I'm saying like we never make changes, because I've certainly made a ton of huge changes, but really I think the reason I've been on a pretty an accelerated path, if I may say so, is because I haven't avoided the things that are right in front of my face.
Mm-hmm. Oh, mic drop. I love that. And that is so huge because so much pain. In fact, some of the biggest suffering that we as humans will experience is when we are arguing with what is and what's right in front of us. And we're saying it shouldn't be like this. And if I was really, I hear this a lot from folks like, if I'm really doing spiritual work, it'll look like having my own practice, or it's going to look the way so and so's doing it, or the way that Instagram influencer, who by the way is totally hijacked, is doing it. And that's not
Mm-hmm.
true at all. That the spiritual work is done in those jobs, that some of the greatest spiritual work you're doing are in the environments that you're in right now, because for some reason you created that circumstance, that environment for yourself. Now your work is to be, as Jordan says, 111% available for it. And let that take you on whatever journey it's going to take you on, instead of chasing whatever you see someone else doing that you think is quote unquote better. I love that so much. That's such an empowering message and such an empowering way to create your own personal golden age, to no longer avoid anything that's in front of you.
Yeah. And for me, sometimes this has looked like having 10 or more meditation events in a month. Sometimes I have a lot more metaphysical healing clients than other times. Sometimes it looks like me going to the pool with my beloved twice a day.
Mhm.
Sometimes it looks like me doubling down on, I have a pretty mainstream artificial matrix job where I do digital marketing. Sometimes it looks like being available to my clients for that. Over the past year, even every month has kind of had a different flavor. And I've gotten so much out of every single one. I think in the past, I used to really try to, make things happen and like
Mhm.
create these workshops and create these offerings and really stress myself out and judge myself for not doing stuff exactly the way that other people who I perceived as being on my path are doing them.
Mhm.
And things just get so much easier when you let it all go. I
So
don't, though, want people to mistake that. I I mean, you know me, Christian. It's like when I get really focused on something, I'm very all in and committed. So it doesn't mean that I'm not calling in other things. Sometimes I'll be a bit on a campaign where every day I'm meditating for 20 to 30 minutes on a specific thing and inviting myself to attune to the frequency of something that I want to create. So we definitely have the ability to shift the game, to re-render our reality, to, you know, change our environment, but it's going to happen a lot faster if we're not avoiding where we are at the moment too. You can do
exactly.
both.
Exactly. And what you're talking about here is really like the step one of where anyone is who's listening to this podcast right now. Just be fully present where you're at right now. Be fully available for the emotions, for the story, whatever's coming up. And then from there, you will be guided to your inspired next step when you're fully available for what's in front of you. So this really, what you're speaking about is like the powerful step one of co-creation, because your point of power is always right where you are right here, right now. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, you'll be inspired to whatever is next, but not because I'm trying to do what so-and-so is doing, or I'm trying to, do this because I think it's the quote unquote right thing. I'm literally letting my full engagement with my emotions, with my environment, show me what my next step is.
Yeah. If I were to say though, what is the one thing I think if everybody did it, their entire life would change, and it's so easy, costs you no money, you don't have to take any class. It's just to set a timer for 5 minutes a day and set the intention of I am being available for myself for these 5 minutes to access and connect with my divinity at whatever level is available for me. You
Love
could, you don't have to be that wordy,
that. Or you can.
or you
So
can.
set a timer for 5 minutes every day to connect with your divinity. So that looks like just sitting there and just being available for whatever comes in those 5 minutes.
It could. If you want to walk, great. I do a like meditation one-on-one workshop with people where we go through, depending on time, 5 to 10 different practices, because I'm a big believer that meditation can look like a lot of things. The real goal is to bring ourselves back to a state of embodiment and availability for our divinity. And so for some people, art can get them in that place, walking can get them in that place. I do very well with sitting my butt down and being quiet or listening to music. That works really well for me. And I do think that's valuable. But, it could look like a lot of things, but just taking 5 minutes to not be on Instagram or hustling or whatever, and just allowing yourself to receive your own light for 5 minutes, I think is really powerful. I really do believe if that's all you did, you will see shifts. For those who want to go hard in the paint, there's obviously more you can do. But I think if you're not already doing that, that alone is an incredible step. And I think it's super doable and something that every single human is capable of.
Mm, absolutely. So this is a perfect segue, Jordan. Then if someone wants to learn more about these 5 to 10 practices that you teach in your meditation 101, or they want to connect with you more fully or work with you one-on-one, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and connect with you?
The fastest way is my Instagram. If you message me on Instagram and add me, I'll probably get back to you pretty quickly. That's at golden underscore age underscore creatrix, Creatrix. That'd be the fastest way. You can also email me at Jordan, Jordan, at goldenage.digital. Those are the best ways to reach out. So if you want to do meditation stuff, let me know. I also am working with individual one-on-one clients doing the metaphysical psychology advanced technology protocol that Dr. Strang teaches. And so that's also an expansion of the superpowers guide. So if anyone's already doing the superpowers guide and wants an additional support or guidance, I've found a lot of benefit, Christian, in having you facilitate sessions for me, even though I know the process. It's just when we come together and we can hold space for other people, things can move a lot more quickly and a lot more easily sometimes than they do on our own. That's something I love facilitating and walking people through. I think it's very different than other healing modalities that I've tried. And I find that it has more staying power than other things I've done.
Yes.
So highly recommend that if anyone is interested in that. Of course, there's other practitioners in the 5D Plus creators directory as well. It's not just me, but if I resonate with you and you want to work with me, hit me up and let me know. And then on meditation stuff, I currently don't have any in-person classes going on scheduled yet, but if there's demand or you have questions about that, definitely let me know. We could also do coaching on that as well. I'm super
Beautiful.
passionate about meditation because I just think it's so easy and accessible, but we get in our heads and a lot of people just we build it up like, oh, I'm going to be bad at it, or what if I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing it right. And it's actually super simple. So I'm super passionate about helping people integrate that into their lives. And then, of course, the nutritional piece. I work with Purium, as do you. And there's a lot of great protocols there that I think when you combine them with the empath and meditation, you're going to quantum leap.
Yes.
But also be ready to face your stuff. Because I have found sometimes when I really lean into this stuff, things come up pretty quickly. And it's really helpful to have support and other humans to help you through that process. But if you're really serious about getting as much out of this life as you can, I think that's really the trifecta. That's what's worked for me, I guess, is all I can really say.
Yeah, it's such a powerful combination and love that you're doing this work in the world, Jordan. So yes, get on Instagram, folks. Go to @golden_age_creatrix. Did I get that right, Jordan?
Yeah.
And add Jordan, start following her, reach out to her with a DM if you want to get deeper into her swirl and get more connected. Jordan, thank you so much for being here with us today. Such an amazing conversation. We went to so many yummy places, and I so appreciate, as always, your authenticity, your vulnerability, your openness, and the beautiful light that you are on earth. Thank you to all those who are listening. Thank you for being with us here today and also being here on earth and walking this awakening path with us. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christian Strang, and this has been Awakening the Podcast.